All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
Hello, everybody. We're back again, Two Doomed Men, and this week we have another guest, our boy Zoo. Say what's up, Zoo.
What's going on, boys?
How we all doing today in
Cheers.
quarantine? We got our drinky poos ready.
Yes.
Cheers, gentlemen.
Forward mine.
A little bit of scotch from Monkey Shoulder. Very tasty.
I got
Cheers.
A little bit of Yingling, which isn't one of the oldest beers in America.
America.
One of the oldest breweries.
One of those
I'm not
breweries,
mistaken.
right? Fitting for this podcast topic that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, so it's we're on track, but we're off track for this one.
Yeah, this is
This
a
is
podcast
about America.
Yeah, this is about America, somewhere that we live. This is a podcast I've been wanting to do for a long time with somebody, and finally somebody decided to pick up the book and read it, and that was our friend Zoo here. So this is about a book called A People's History of the United States.
Do we have the
Yeah,
book so we
this
can
is it
show them
right
on
here.
YouTube?
It's written by
Who's the author?
Howard Zinn is the author. It's a pretty old book, I think. It's
The 80s, I believe.
yeah, it's been around for a long time. Yeah.
Now, I've never read this book for anybody who's wondering. So the people who have read it are Skaggs over here and Zoo over there.
Yeah.
And
I haven't even read the whole thing yet. I'm like halfway through. It's a long, detailed historical read. Go ahead.
Yes. So I'm kind of getting this at fresh eyes off of stuff that they're discussing, because apparently some of it lines up with some things I've said in the past as well.
Right.
So it should be interesting.
There's
I'm excited to hear about this different viewpoint.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels to things that are going on in today's society still from the period that we're going to talk about, which is really like the colonial period of America. And then I want to talk a little bit about after the Revolutionary War, some things going on there. Yeah, so what did you read up to so far, Zoo?
I only got up to the end of chapter 3, so not too far in. I'm kind of just
two.
I think like page
Yeah.
60 out of, what is it, 700-800? So barely scratched the surface. But I mean, even in those first 60 odd pages, whatever it was, it was probably one of the most interesting books I think I've read in a very long time. Just in terms of the differences of what we were taught in school versus what I guess actually happened.
Right.
And I mean,
To piggyback
now
on
that I'm
to piggyback
Yeah.
on that, this book is literally exactly what the title says it is. It is a people's history of the country, not the U.S. history textbook that is given to students in school. It is the history of the country given from just your normal Joe's point of view. Like it's accounts from literal people who lived in the day, and then shit that actually happened that textbooks do not cover most of the history of the country.
Like,
they omit a lot of stuff. They give you the government soup approved version of our history.
It's not meant to. This book, I feel like, in my opinion, is not meant to teach you anything. It's not meant to force anything upon you. It's just
to open your eyes.
This is just what happened. This just is what it is.
Right.
Take it as you will.
Yeah, good point for, I remember, funny enough, like the very, very first time I ever watched Gangs in New York, like I never knew that there was like anti-immigration against like people's own kind from like showing up to like from like France and Ireland and all that stuff. And like I never knew that there was like an opposing side. Yeah. So like I never knew that. Like I thought back then when America was becoming the big melting pot, everyone was happy to have them come in, because I never learned that they hated the immigrants. The same thing for when we were freeing the slaves. When I was a child and I learned that in, history class, there's, we freed the slaves and it all went on from there. Never really knew that there was, such an opposing party and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it gives you
all.
Yeah. So it gives you, the different view of what we didn't learn.
Definitely, man.
Which kind of makes you think,
which is a lot.
Yeah, which kind of makes you think though, like, so what's the time period in this book? How many hundreds of years ago was it?
We're talking about 16 and 1700.
That's a period we want to talk about.
Wanted to talk about today,
The period we want to talk about is basically towards the end of the colonial period, so basically the 13 colonies, and then I wanted to touch on briefly a period after the American, Revolutionary War. But this book
Right.
touches on from basically the moment Columbus left, to discover the New World. And I haven't even gotten that far towards the end, but I'm pretty sure right up until when the book was written, like around the 70s or 80s. I think 'cause the book was written in
Wow.
the 80s. Yeah.
So just think what the history. I wonder
Actually,
what
it
the
goes
history
even
books
later.
are going to omit.
It goes into the 2000s, I believe.
Okay. I wonder what the history books are going to omit for like our great grandchildren when it's 2 centuries away and the 45th president was ancient news and
Yeah.
you know what I mean. The year 2020 was 125 years ago.
Yeah, they'll have to do a
What they'll
revision.
be what they'll be
interesting
omitting
thought.
from the history books then.
Yeah, something interesting about that though is that we have the internet and shit now. So like, there's a lot of people's opinions are documented, recorded on the internet, even
Yeah.
if they're crazy or wrong or whatnot. People's,
Yeah.
an actual people's history, I guess you could say, is documented via the internet
On
now,
Twitter.
as opposed to back then.
Documented by the people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
back then it was only really controlled by like the newspaper and what little media they had. Like whoever
Yeah.
owned the means of production controlled the narrative of the day. As opposed to today, now we disagree about fucking everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did they get all the quotes and stuff from the people?
Well, this guy,
So it was written in the 80s,
Yeah.
but what happened?
this guy
how'd they
Howard
get this
Zinn,
information
he
from the
must have done a
1600s?
tremendous amount of research and whatnot, because he has actual quotes and stuff here from people of the time.
From James Madison and Hamilton.
Yeah, and not only them, but just normal people too, like written accounts
yeah.
by people that were in certain situations or whatnot. So, Zoo, go ahead. Tell us a little bit about the chapter that you wanted to talk about, which was chapter 2 and 3, I think, or 3.
Yeah, it was a little bit of 2, mostly 3. And the general theme was just the division of the common citizens and by the people in power. And the point of it was basically to keep the people in power and keep the citizens as in the poorer classes, basically. And as I was reading this, it basically struck me as being very, very similar to the things that are going on today, albeit the tools that these people in power that are using are just
More
quite a bit
sophisticated.
different, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks to technology. So I mean, the division of the people, I guess, basically, and
Yeah.
which this is something that you don't learn in school
No, no.
at all, at an elementary level. Let's just
It's a
say.
strategy.
Yes.
Right.
I'll give you guys.
If you're a collegiate, go ahead.
I'll give you guys a direct example because I have chapter 3 open here. So at this time period, like we were saying before, Cappy, that you didn't read this, is basically the colonies. So this is pre-revolution, pre the United States of America.
Yeah.
This is when it was just the colonies. And at this point, they're talking about how there was white servants and black servants, which are basically slaves, right? This was kind of before
Something I
slavery
didn't
was
know about.
officially
Yeah.
established yet as a thing. People didn't think of it as slavery.
Before they started shipping them in. Yeah.
They started shipping them in, but it wasn't official. Remember, this is like the beginning of slavery, so they didn't understand it the way that we understand slavery today. It's like an established thing for us.
Probably
But back
completely
then, it
different
just
story.
it was brand new. The people in
And it was
charge.
acceptable, crazy
Yeah.
as that sounds.
Let's give them an example here. Basically, the people in charge, and I think this is in Virginia, for example, were terrified that the white servants and the black slaves were going to unite together to, take back the balance of power. So
Well,
I'll
it
give
was already happening. They were uniting, and
in
and
some
that's-
cases, yeah.
One example I think was Bacon's rebellion, which had to do with the Native Americans. But and I don't recall exactly what that was about. But there was a quote in the book that said if the white servants and the black slaves were to come together, it would make Bacon's rebellion look like nothing. And they were hurting kind of from Bacon's rebellion. And I'm talking about the ruling class. So I'm sorry. Continue your point. That was just a little tangent.
Yeah, I have a quote here. It says that there are hints that the two despised groups, which are blacks and white servants, initially saw each other as sharing the same predicament. It wasn't common, for example, for servants and slaves to run away together, steal hogs together, get drunk together. Sounds like a good time. And it was not uncommon for them to make love together. And then in Bacon's rebellion, one of the last groups to surrender was a mixed band of 80 Negroes and 20 English servants. So literally, Bacon was kind of like a rebel leader at the time in the colonies, and one of the groups in his rebellion was literally a mixture of white and black people. And that's what the establishment at the time was terrified of. Just basically the general poor banding together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But let's take a step back a little bit, because like I feel like what we didn't touch on and what the history books don't touch on is just how many white people actually came over in the servitude in this country. I mean, it was an insane number. And look, I'm not equating the indentured servitude of white people with slavery, because it was vastly different. I mean, these servants had a set number of years that they would serve, and then they would become free.
An indentured servant.
Very poor, but I mean, slavery was just for life. So it was two different things. But nevertheless, there were, I think at one point in the book when I was reading, it said almost half of the people that came over here, white people anyway, came over in servitude.
Right. And what we mean by servitude is basically, the rich people who were property owners here in the colonies needed people to work the land. So they paid people to come from England, and you'd sign a contract. You had to work 5 years on the land, and you had to live on the land, and you had to do everything that the master said and whatnot. And then after the 5 years, you were free to go about your way. No, it was nothing like slavery whatsoever. And so, with the slaves, they were basically just taken from their land, forced onto a ship, chained down, brought there, and there was like a sophisticated way of trying to take away like the slaves' humanity, to make them be broken, just to break them. With the servants, they were treated like shit too, but they were allowed to kind of.
It just wasn't as.
There was a last day.
No way as severe.
There was a last day on the job. Yeah,
there was a last day on the job. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's funny. You got we talk about how they were so afraid of the white servants and the black servants coming together, and that's why there's still racism today in the media and shit. Because if everybody just got their shit together and all became together as one, the establishment would shit their pants. It'd be something they can't control. Division is really a strategy, divide and conquer. You keep everyone separated. And while we're bickering about this fight over here about who's black and who's white and blah, blah, you don't worry about the actual problems.
Well, racism was basically something that was manufactured by the ruling class back then. Virginia, South Carolina,
which makes perfect sense.
Yeah, what they did was they allowed when they started realizing that these white indentured servants and the black slaves would come together and rebel, and then when they realized that these rebellions would crush the ruling class, they started allowing
they brought racism in as a tool
to serve in the they allowed these white indentured servants to serve in the militia in place of white freemen, and they would actually pay these white indentured servants. It was like they would get muskets, corn. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes. Muskets, corn, and cash. Right. So now racism was becoming a practical thing. Like if you were a white dude, right,
it paid to be white.
What were you going to do? Right. It paid to be white, basically.
Right.
So you would join the militia. You would get paid in guns, in corn, and in actual money.
What the people in charge did was they took what was becoming a class struggle, which was a poor versus rich struggle, and the poor being poor white servants and black slaves, and then the establishment, the rich being, basically old white guys who owned property, land, and had a lot of money. And they turned that into a racial struggle, because the racial struggle benefited them. They needed to win over those poor white servants on their side and basically elevate their position in society just slightly enough to the fact where they think, oh, look, I could be rich and I could have a future in this country, in order to like divide them from the blacks at the time. Another interesting thing I wanted to bring up, Zoo, was a tactic of how they wanted to deal with the Native Americans, how they basically would, this was in the beginning when there was just the 13 colonies, and a lot of like the settlements in America were just on the coastline. And a lot of these landowners and the establishment and whatnot, they wanted to move, they wanted to expand the colonies. They wanted to move further inland. But they couldn't just do it because the Native Americans were fighting back. It costed a lot of money. You had to hire troops. You had to pay the militia and whatnot. So another strategy they did was just say, we'll give you some guns and some supplies and things like that. If you could go out west a little bit and claim some land, it's yours.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Until
Like,
we want it.
they did that because that's almost like they're just we're giving you land, but they're really sending these guys just to kill Native Americans. Who's going to fight back
Right.
against these random white settlers, the Native Americans? They're basically using poor people as a shield to protect their colonies
Right.
Pawning
against Native
They're
Americans.
pawns.
Pawns, yeah.
They're
They're
pawns.
using them.
Meanwhile, these people got no help from the quasi governments at the time.
No, they didn't. They were kind of on
like,
their
"Look,
own. Yeah. They were a buffer.
Yeah,
They were a
they
buffer.
got no support.
They wanted the
nothing,
poor
yeah.
whites to be
That's
a
all it
buffer
was,
between
exactly,
them
a buffer.
and the Native Americans who were like raiding the colonies, attacking towns and whatnot. Yeah. And that was another form of
Yeah.
basically racial, like racial separation. Here, look, we'll give you a little bit of land if you go out there and kill Native American people. So then what naturally happens? Those poor white people
hate
end up
them, yeah.
hating Native Americans because they move out there, they take the land, Native Americans attack them. They're dumb, ignorant people. They don't understand what's going on. They're not open to having conversations with Native Americans and things like that.
No, but an interesting thing, now that you bring that up, I'm remembering in the reading is that there were a lot of Europeans that either they were captured by the Native Americans or they would encounter, more peaceful Native Americans. The two would come together. And there was actually I don't know the numbers, but there was quite a bit of Europeans that actually joined up with the Native
Yeah, I saw
Americans
that.
and chose to live with the Native Americans. And it never, ever happened the other way around, which I thought was extremely interesting.
Yeah, because you juice these guys up, you give them plenty of food and cash, and you strap arms on them. You're like, listen, if you don't ever want to work another day in your life for us, you go kill those Indians over there. That's why there was no negotiating. You know what I mean? Like, if it led to like battle, like these white guys just ran in there, guns blazing, as crazy as possible to take out the Indians. So they were guaranteed land. They're fighting. They're almost like tricked into fighting for their own freedom. Like if you had to fight for your house instead of buy it, like
yeah, right,
right,
kind of. Yeah, you're right.
you
What I
go
think
in
Zoo
guns
was,
blazing.
yeah, what I think Zoo was saying though is that a lot of white people kind of ended up joining Native American tribes and societies.
ever
and
see
Yeah,
things
but he
like
said
that.
there was. Yeah, I
Yes, similar
and I
like
understand that, but it was never the other way around.
Right.
It was
Native
never the
Americans
other way
did not-
around.
yeah,
Right.
Eventually, yes, Native Americans
Yeah.
tried to assimilate as one of their strategies just to not die. They
Just
tried to
yeah,
assimilate
exactly.
into
That was
white
out of pure
society.
survival.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was I going to say? I lost my train of thought. But the people who were going there. Yeah.
It's at the bottom of that bottle.
That's what you're
Bottom
thinking,
of the
Juice.
barrel. My
Yeah.
thinking juice.
Your
Yeah, I
beer
like that.
barrel. Yeah.
Yeah. The another okay. So basically, at the time when we were still in the colonial phase, especially in Virginia, a lot of these English settlers and whatnot, they weren't good at like farming the land, living off the land. Like they
Right.
weren't good at that
Completely
type of
different than they were used to.
yeah. They weren't able to just easily come over here, settle the land, and be self-sustaining. You know how you always say, "Cap, you want the Legion Ranch and just live
Yeah.
off the land." A lot of them didn't know how to do that, and they would suffer and die of starvation and wouldn't be able to do anything to farm. So a lot of them were forced to just join the Native Americans because the Native Americans knew how to survive. They've been living here
Yeah.
forever. They knew how to grow food and hunt and what what type of things you could eat in the forest and what you couldn't and whatnot. So that was another thing too. Like a lot of these people weren't even.
How did the owners of those white indentured servants feel when they would team up with the Native Americans? Because they were really just tricked to go out there and waste them so you could get more land. And eventually, when the rich people wanted to expand, they'd go buy that land.
Yeah, that was the thing that they were ultimately terrified of. Like we were saying before,
right,
is a union of basically all the poverty, everyone who was poor,
Right.
regardless of what their race
That's
was.
another reason that they made them go fight
Yeah.
the Native Americans. They did not want the
Intermingling.
Because they'd really be screwed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they'd be fucked.
They'd really be screwed with the blacks, the whites, and the Native Americans all going against
Yeah.
them.
These are so similar
I mean,
to
they
problems we
they
have
weren't
today, man.
stupid.
I know. I know.
That's
Think
why I wanted to talk about it, because I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Think if-
unbelievable, the similarities, and then I feel like
Yeah.
not a lot of people see it,
Yeah.
or if they
Yeah.
do, they just don't care, or they're just too fucking overworked and underpaid to fucking want to do anything about it.
Yeah, you
Think
think
what would
that's by
happen
accident?
Yeah, think what would
No,
happen
it's designed.
if Trump supporters, LGBTQ, Me Too, and Black Lives Matter could all work together for a common cause. Like all the energy, each of those little groups, all the energy that they put into every little protest and everything that they're trying to get passed. Now imagine combining all that energy to get something done that we could all agree on. It'd be a nightmare for the government. That'd be for sure.
Well, you know what the blocker is? It's the fucking media.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were just
the media
with them.
pits these groups against each other.
Yeah. Joe Biden's up on sexual account charges. No Me Too movement. Some, that poor black teen in what we talked about 2 weeks ago, Skaggs.
In
Georgia,
I think his name was.
Yeah. There's a couple of new stories that came out about him that he was kind of maybe a career criminal, but I still don't think what those two guys did were right in any means.
Jack shit.
Yeah, and where's the Black Lives Matter movement? Where nobody's been protesting the police because the police have been keeping the fucking cities together during a time like this. You know what I mean? Like, where's all these groups nowadays? You know what I mean?
Yeah. All of this shit that happened in the book, so far we only really talked about the colonial times, but it was all by intelligent design. That was one of the points I wanted to make. So another one of the chapters that I was reading that I told you before, Zoo, in this book is on page, this is chapter 4, I believe. This is when we get into, this is now
4 or 5.
Yeah, 4 or 4, I think. And it's chapter's called The Kind of Revolution. And now at this time in the book, we're in the American Revolution, we're past it, right? And the United States has been established as a country. And even though the colonies and the United States are two different things, they really aren't two different things. They're the same people. The people who were living in the colonies, the establishment in the colonies, ended up becoming the establishment in the United States of America. It's just that now,
they had power from the start.
Right now, the establishment didn't have to listen to England and the king. And a real big reason why there even was a revolution is because that establishment in the colonies just did not want to kick back to the king anymore. It didn't have everything to do with personal freedom for all people and whatnot that the history books lead you to believe. The people who led the charge of the revolution were like the elites. They did not want to share wealth.
Yeah, they just didn't feel like paying the king. It had nothing to do with like freedom. They just didn't want to fucking pay taxes.
They dressed it in freedom.
And yet they brought taxes anyway.
In order to win this revolution, they needed the poor, the common people on their side. So they dressed it in patriotism and pride and we need our own country with freedoms and whatnot.
That's what it's still dressed up as today.
Yeah, definitely. Without a doubt, it still is. What's insane is on pages 96 and 97 that I was reading, where James Madison, he was one of the founding fathers of the country, basically, and he was writing in the Federalist Papers. I'm going to read a little bit here because this is absolutely insane. Like I was saying before, there was intelligent design behind trying to keep people divided, even after the United States has been established as a country, right? So in Federalist Paper number 10, James Madison argued that representative government was needed to maintain peace in a society ridden by factional disputes, right? Disputes is just people, disagreeing, right? These disputes came from the various and unequal distribution of property. Those who hold and those who are without property have ever formed distinct interests in society. The problem, he said, was how to control the factional struggles that came from inequalities in wealth. Minority factions could be controlled, he said, by the principle that decisions would be by vote of majority. So what he's saying is that basically anybody class struggle could be kind of overwritten by votes of majority, right? This is a founding father of the country, is literally... He's not there talking about, I want freedom and equality for all people. He's saying, how can I control poor people? How can we control poor people? How can we get them to just do what we want, right? There was literal thought being put behind, how do we control
I don't think much has changed
back then.
He also went on to talk about, I forget if this was Hamilton or if this was Madison. I think it was still Madison talking here in the Federalist Papers. He was talking about how they wanted a larger nation across 13 colonies.
That's the next part. That's the next part I'm going to bring up. I'll literally read that part.
Right
here.
Go ahead.
So literally, the next paragraph is, so the real problem, according to Madison, was a majority faction. basically a large group of people that go against what the government says. That's what he means by majority faction. And here's the
People
solution.
can take over the government.
Right. And he's also talking about the Constitution, right? They're trying to write these things into the Constitution that will suppress
They're
the
trying
people.
to, they're trying to,
Yeah. And here was the solution offered by the Constitution: to have an extensive republic, that is, a large nation ranging over 13 states. For then it will be more difficult for all who feel it to discover their own strength and act in unison with each other. The influence of fictitious leaders may kindle a flame within their particular states, but will be unable to spread a general conflagration through the other states. Basically, what he's saying is, if we can make a stronger central government, it'll be easier to stomp out little tiny rebellions in individual states, as opposed to, you know, like it won't spread from state to state because there'll be a strong central government there to stomp it out immediately.
Why I hate
This is a
government.
founding father of the United States.
Individual governments
Yeah.
in each state, and then in order to get a rebellion right past one state and one state government, then it would have to be like a virus or a disease. It would have to infect
Yeah.
the next state, the next state.
An idea is like
would have to.
an idea is like a virus, right? And they were trying. These guys were smart. I got to hand it to them. The founding fathers were geniuses, and they weren't all just super evil men. But some of them, you know, they were trying to craft a society that they could retain power in, and they still have. Like to this day, it's obvious that it's worked.
Some of them are still playing the same playbook.
I mean, some of them, it's the same families still in power today. It's 300 years later.
Let me read off one
Which
more.
is out of control.
One more important paragraph here. This is a little bit later on. It says, when economic interest is seen behind the political clauses of the Constitution, then the document becomes not simply the work of wise men trying to establish a decent and orderly society, but the work of certain groups trying to maintain their privileges while giving just enough rights and liberties to enough of the people to ensure popular support. So what this is saying is basically the people who wrote the Constitution were writing it in order to keep the establishment that they had going and give the people just enough freedom so that they wouldn't rebel against their establishment that was already in place.
This is so, Zoo. I don't think I ever spoke to you about it, but I've had this long-standing conspiracy that I've thought up myself a while back that, you know, the ruling class had never stopped ruling. You know, it just turned into the government. And my theory started with, you know, the idea of like the nuclear family. You understand what that is, right? The mother, father, 2.5 kids, whatever, the dog, like the little the perfect American life, whatever.
One picket fence. I understand.
Yeah. And I said, you know, like, how come like that was set as like the height and the norm of like American living? Because you were given just enough to say, look at everything I got. And you felt free enough, but you were still like, you were never made to go get more. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what you were striving for, this mediocrity. And here's a perfect quote, like what Skaggs just said, where they want to give us just enough freedom so we don't rebel back.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you, Cap. This book basically fucking proves your theory. It's not a conspiracy theory. It was literally the founding fathers. The founding fathers literally thought this up. You know, the nuclear family came later, but...
And we see it now where they're seeing how many freedoms they could take away before we start to get pissed off. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're in the middle of a pandemic that's gotten very shady very quickly. Yes. Like, not to say that there's not a pandemic and not to say that there is not a virus or anything. There clearly is. But, like, you know, the New York narrative was, we're going to flatten the curve and we're going to make sure the hospitals aren't overran, and then we will end the lockdown. And now all of a sudden... The curve has been flattened. The numbers are down. The hospitals aren't overrun. The makeshift hospitals were never even used. And now it's down to, we're going to extend the lockdown until we get a, you know, stimulus package where the state's going to come out of debt. You know what I mean? Like now we're being held hostage.
Yeah. You got to be skeptical of everything, right? Yeah. Listen, if you think that we're just some fucking nut job lunatics, right wing people, believe me, I'm not right wing at all. I'm left wing. Maybe the captain is. He's pretty right wing, but I'm not. You cannot trust anything the government does. This could be a concentrated. Yes, like I said, the virus is real, but that doesn't mean they won't opportunize something like that. You know, in order to influence society another way.
Everybody's looking for their opportunities.
Exactly. Just like the book says that they did back then. They used racism and you know, the fact that a lot of people were poor and had nothing, they used that to their advantage so that certain people could remain in power and stay wealthy. And those families you were talking about before, Zoo, they're still fucking wealthy to this day. They're old money people, you know. It worked. It's a trial tested fucking thing that works, and they're not going to just give up on it. The nuclear family is just a rebranding of that same movement. Let's put it that way, Cap.
Yeah, they gave everybody just enough freedom at the time to feel, you know what I mean? Like, I have a house, a yard to myself. I work a good, respectable job. My wife doesn't have to work. She sits home baking. Son's the quarterback. My daughter's the, you know, dance captain of the team. Perfect little lifestyle. How come how come it's not everyone in your family owns their own fucking business and you guys make millions and you know, live on these big, you know, estates and shit like the wealthy do? Think back to like the colonial age and a little bit past that, around the Industrial Revolution, where the wealthy were living on these big manors and everyone else was stuck in these little apartments throughout all the cities Tenements. And shit. It was still the same setup all the way through from the 13 colonies on. It's always been the same setup. And even now, you don't hear of, you know, Nancy Pelosi, anyone in her family getting sick. You don't hear of any Rothschild's family members coming down with COVID. All these multi-million and billionaires, no one in Jeff Bezos' fucking, you know, families getting sick and shit like that. And here we are now. The wealthy are still separated from the way the rest of us live.
Yeah, they live in a bubble, basically. They're insulated from the whole thing. Those things still go on, bro. There's projects, you know, in the city, and there's really poor areas that nobody ever tries to improve. The politicians never try to improve them. As much as you know what pisses me off? As much as with this whole situation, like, a lot of politicians play the identity politics bullshit. You know, COVID is disproportionately targeting minorities and whatnot. Yeah, it is, but because they're poor, right? And why are they poor? You know, because of social situations that this country has been going through for, you know, since its inception. But you're a politician and you don't do jack shit to try and improve those people's situation. But yet when something happens, you want to play the identity card saying, we know this thing, you know, we have to help minorities. You don't give a flying fuck about minorities. If you did, you try and help them get out of that situation. You try and improve those neighborhoods.
Dude, if they improved, if they were to actually care about minorities, right? And they actually worked to improve the situation, what the fuck card are they going to have to play ever again?
Yeah, they're just using it as a
card to play anymore. Yeah. They're gonna fucking work themselves out of it.
They have a whole segment of the communities just under their thumb and basically still oppressed. Keep them, you know, fat, lazy, stupid. And I'm not saying everyone is. We keep them fat, lazy, stupid, and most importantly, divided by money and divided by living situations. So when shit hits the fan, people like us who, you know, have never lived in those situations and currently don't live in those situations, we can never turn to that whole end of that community to team up and become one with them. You know what I mean? It's still the same playbook of that division that, you know.
And then if you want,
exactly. The whites are still the indentured servants with a little bit more privilege,
right? Like the middle class whites, you could
underclass minorities. Right. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, the fact that we get to work and we get to go home and, you know, we get to kind of pick our career kind of thing, like whatever.
We
like,
get 2 weeks vacation.
Well and good. Right, yeah, but at the end of the day, like, okay, what do you have to do to even get that fucking 6-figure salary job? Now you got to go and you got to go into 7 fucking figure debt to even get a 6-figure salary. Like, it makes no sense, bro. You're still an indentured servant at the end of the day, and you're the end of your term or whatever is fucking 40 years down the road, which is your retirement, and your pension is the fucking musket, the corn, and the fucking cash they got, you know, 300 years ago.
That's a great fucking point, bro. That's a great point. Dude. It's modernized, right? It's more sophisticated than it was back then.
Yeah, we don't need guns and corn anymore. We just need more money. And
you need pension.
What's the hardest thing to get? Money.
Which is going to fucking disappear because it's grossly misappropriated from everything I've heard.
Yeah. So just think, it's the same playbook today, and it doesn't even matter who's in office. You know, it's been the same playbook since day one.
Yeah. Same playbook. Absolutely. Maybe different strategies. You know, the Republican idea to all those poor people be like, "Oh, just pick yourself up by your bootstraps, you know, and you'll be all right."
Yeah.
And I did it. You know, you could do it too. No, that's not how it works.
It's extremely hard. I mean, unless you're incredibly fucking smart, unless you're a Jeff Bezos, unless you're a fucking Elon Musk or a fuck, I hate to say it because I hate Facebook, but what the fuck is his name? Zuckerberg.
Mark Zucker.
Unless you're smart enough to just invent something that is going to change the world.
Yeah.
You're just going to be mediocre, man.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll become a CFO, a CEO. Maybe you'll make a couple million
make
bucks.
200 grand. Yeah.
See, those three guys are kind of a different situation, though, like you said, Zoo, because they kind of invented something new, and that's what propelled them to becoming rich billionaires.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean? I'd honestly, I don't know much about the three guys, but I'm probably going to go out on a limb here and say all three of them probably had good upbringings. They probably were raised, had good educations.
Well,
were raised
Zuckerberg
in
was in Harvard, no?
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They were raised in good environments. They had a great, let's say they were, it's a cliche, but let's say they had a silver spoon. They were born in a silver spoon in their mouths. I'm not taking anything away from the fact that they invented great shit, but they had a great start to their lives, which helped propel them into that thing, as opposed to somebody who's, born into poverty, father left them, shitty situation, crime-ridden neighborhood.
Garbage.
How hard it is for that person to get out of that situation?
Yeah. And this goes back to the point where Zoo was saying these politicians don't care about these, these projects and stuff like that. Because if you cared, you would make sure there was better school funding, there was better teachers, there was better books, there was, you know what I mean? Like,
why is there no plan to fix that? Yeah.
Yeah. You would make sure. So, like, if you take a prime example of Baltimore, remember the mayor or the governor who died? What's his name? Right before he died, he had it.
Right?
Yeah.
I forget.
He had it out with Trump.
Yes.
Him and Trump really had it out. And Trump said something along the lines of, like, last year I signed, like a bill giving you $20 million. Like, where did it all go? How come you still have all, like, and obviously like 20 million is not going to fix a ghetto or anything or a project or anything like that.
Yeah.
But he's like, I gave you X number of dollars. What'd you go do with it? Where is it? How did you put that back into your community to make it better? That's what you're looking for here. You're mad that I'm not making your community better. I gave you money last year to make it better.
Yeah. It was Elijah Cummings.
What are you doing?
Elijah Cummings is who.
There you go. Yes. He died, right?
I think so. Yeah, he passed away.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a great point. You know what I mean? And I'll be honest with you, that's actually a pretty good point by Trump for once.
Mm-hmm.
Why are these politicians who are in charge, regardless if they're black or white, regardless of where they are, what city they're in charge of, there's never any like, this is what we're going to do to fix this neighborhood so that this poor, shitty neighborhood in 10 years is going to be a thriving, great neighborhood. And if they do something like that, it's gentrification, which doesn't even help the people there. It doesn't even help the people there. It just makes rich people richer.
No, it makes the situation worse. It makes the difference between the lower class and the middle class
even
that
worse.
much bigger. I mean,
it pushes,
and then it propagates more racism, basically.
Yeah,
it does,
and it pushes the lower class out into another lower class area.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now you're getting overpopulation in even smaller fucking lower class areas.
Let's put it this way: if Howard Zinn would continue this book every 10 years, this period of time that we're in, he'd write about gentrification a lot as another tool, as you know what I mean, just an extension of all these things going on. He'd write it down,
And you only get the gentrification because I could promise you more than anything, the politicians get a cut. Instead of taking the bill and the money that they get to redistribute it back into the projects, they take a cut of that into their slush fund and go use it for whatever else they need. And then they see the opportunity or hold out for the opportunity to gentrify. And they're like, yeah, you could go build over there if I have like a 2% claim in everything you build.
Yeah, well, what do you think happens? The construction companies that get the bid for the city to build whatever the hell the city's going to build. I mean, the mayor, the governor, whatever, whoever is giving that order, that permission, is going to get a kickback.
Yeah. Or a job in the future on that board, or on
whatever it may be.
Oh, yeah, once you're done in office,
right.
You can be a board member for our
stock in the company or something.
Yeah.
Look, I want to bring it back to the book real quick to another little paragraph here, Cap. This also reinforces your idea of how the nuclear family and all that stuff is just a scam, and it's by design by the government. This is while, again, like we were saying, we were talking about before, how they wanted to create a strong central government because that would help serve the interests of like the rich and the people in
Right.
power, and how basically normal people, like middle class farmers, mechanics, things like that, were actually in support of this because they thought it would help them. So what happened was when a couple of the states, including New York, ratified the Constitution, there was like a parade in the city of farmers, mechanics, and things like that, and they were like celebrating the fact that this strong central government was being created, even though it's technically against their when you look back at it now in retrospect, it was really against their best interests, right? So then this paragraph goes, the Constitution then illustrates the complexity of the American system, that it serves the interests of a wealthy elite, but also does enough for small property owners, for middle-income mechanics and farmers to build a broad base of support, right? So it does, like I said before, it does just enough to convince people, to buy into the system, right? And it says the slightly prosperous people who make up this base of support are buffers against the blacks, the Indians, the very poor whites. They enable the elite to keep control with a minimum of coercion, a maximum of law, all made palatable by the fanfare of patriotism and unity. So, yay, we have a strong central government now. We're all going to do really good. Let's, forget about all the problems that we had 5 minutes ago of class division.
Yeah, I mean, just think about...
This was pre-taxes, no?
No, this was all... that's another thing I wanted to touch on, dude. Yeah, that's another thing I wanted to touch on.
That's fine. We'll hit that later.
Yeah, I'll bring it up real quick. I don't know if you didn't get to the Revolutionary War yet. Did you do?
No, not yet.
So when a lot of these guys, when the Revolutionary War happened, a lot of these guys were promised to be paid. Sign on to the militia, to Washington's army, and we're going to pay you once the country is established. Everybody signed a contract. You were going to get paid this much money, etc. They win the war. Everybody goes back home after. Comes time to get paid. People don't get paid. Right? All the farmers, all the militiamen, they didn't get paid. A couple of years go by, they didn't get paid. Eventually, a lot of them in like New England area are like, I'm not going to pay my taxes. Why should I pay my taxes? You never paid me for my service. I fucking fought, family members died. I got injured.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pay my taxes. The federal government, it was actually called Shays' Rebellion. The federal government stepped in and basically snuffed out all these people and forced them to pay their taxes, put them in jail, had, fined them and whatnot. They never fucking paid them. The people had every right not to pay their taxes. And this is supposed to be in a country that's supposed to be about freedom and equality and rights and things like that.
Is just as fucked up as England was. I mean, it's marketed to you as a child as being this fucking amazing place that was just going to be the complete opposite of the fucking the tyranny of England, and it's not.
It's the same thing.
It's rebranded and repackaged in a way that's digestible to people.
Exactly, that's a great way to put it. Yep.
And I completely agree with that.
It goes back into your nuclear family. I mean, just think about the stereotypical American. Like, I'm a red-blooded, like God-fearing, hard-working American. Like, it's fucking bullshit. That statement is fucking bullshit.
Yep.
Like, you're a middle class. Like, you're a fucking servant for the rich.
You just don't think of it that way.
You're working your ass off for other people to make more money.
They use different values throughout time. I saw something along the lines of this a while back, but I don't remember the exact wording, but like, so to put it into reference, like at the time, like, from when, this book was quoting, it was branded as like the patriotic era. Like you were okay with what everything was going on because you were a patriot and like you were building America. And then I guess like the Industrial Revolution, like you were okay with what was going on because you won your liberty to work. We're going to let you work and make a fair wage, like what you believed was a fair wage. Then it was like family values, like you're a great American citizen with this family value. So since you're doing that, it's okay for what's going on behind here. And then it kind of became like, I'm a God-fearing man. So it's like religion. And then like now it's really like consumerism. So like, so like if you know what that means, it's like where people are more concerned, like keeping up with the Smith or the Jones.
Keeping up with the Kardashians.
Yes.
Yeah, you got a Lexus, I got a Mercedes. Yep. You got a Lexus, I got a Mercedes. You got a 60-inch TV, I got a 65-inch TV. You got $100 pair of sneakers, I bought a $150 pair of sneakers.
Dude, now, something even more relatable, bro. The iPhone that comes out every fucking 3.5 months. Yep. Everybody people take off from work to go and stand in line to get a phone that does the exact same fucking thing that they have in their pocket.
And just like the Jordans too, we're re-releasing. Do you know how much he must laugh when they're like, we're going to re-release the 7s, and people are lining up around the street corner, stabbing each other, and he's just raking in money? Like,
I'm pretty sure he still gets royalties.
Oh,
from all of that.
If he's smart, he would. Yeah,
you're right though, Chris.
I mean,
consumerism basically is another method of that control. Like
you look at it, like you look at somebody now that, like, I don't know if if you're an envious person, you look at somebody and you're like, oh, my house only has 3 bedrooms, they have 5 bedrooms. You know what I mean? Oh, they have 3 acres of land, I only have 2. You know what I mean? Like, and that's where that's where everybody starts spending the money. And that's why Amazon's perfect for this day and age, because you saw Joe Bob over there with, fancy new sneakers. So you go and immediately buy your fucking new sneakers. Yeah, think about it. That's how it works now.
Yeah, and you spend the only dollar you have.
I was just laughing at when you said Joe Bob, but no, you're right. Right.
Think of how many people we know who are always just fresh to death, always in nice clothes, but are dead broke when it comes down to it.
All the time.
You know what I mean? Because you were given just enough money and just enough freedom to go buy that crap and look that way. But in reality, now you have no bank account, you got no savings, you got nothing to help you in the long run.
I think you guys make fun of me. I wear the same shit every fucking.
No, I wear the same shit all the time too. I'm the same way.
I'm sitting pretty, bro. I ain't buying clothes.
Yeah. When you think about it, though, Chris, what you said is, they have no savings. They've been crushed by the system, by the consumerism system, right? That's exactly what these powers that be want to happen. Yeah, you have a whole bunch of material possessions, but you've been now crushed. You can't advance any further in society.
It's like brainwashing. It's like, okay, like
you don't
like do whatever you can to work hard, make a good living, but then they brainwash you to just give
buy
everything
the Benz.
back.
To buy
get
the
your fucking platinum credit card, right? Buy your fucking Benz, and buy your iPad, everything.
Don't you think they love it when someone else goes into debt? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, you owe us.
You're a slave. That is a fucking slave mechanism.
And in order to get an education, you have to go into debt.
Yeah. Yes.
That's a whole other.
Just to make money, you have to owe us. You want to make money in the long run, you owe us first. Like, and just think of like the current situation with the lockdown. Like, people complain that like there's protesters that want to restart like their jobs. These people who are protesting like didn't feed their family dinner last night. Their credit score is in the hundreds. Their house, it's eventually no one's going to care if you could work or not. Your house is going to get taken away. COVID-19 or not, that house is ours now. You know what I mean? Like, these are the people protesting to restart the economy. Like, think of how many people already are in debt. You know what I'm saying? Forget if the economy comes back strong enough. Think how many people are already in debt from this shit. They got to love it. They got to love it. All these new people who were working that 9 to 5 and extra hours for free just to get by are now fucking going to be poverty driven. And it's someone else they could keep their thumb on.
Yeah. Zoo, you know what I wanted you to touch on, dude? That in the email, what you were talking about, the education system. Why don't you touch on that a little bit, and then let me tie into how. Yeah, go ahead. I want to make a point, but I want you to first talk a little bit about that. What you said in the email.
Yeah, I mean, I was waiting for a good segue into that, but I guess now's as good a time as ever. I mean, we've been talking a lot now about how people just kind of just play in to the game that these people that are still in the quote unquote ruling class are playing with our lives, basically. And I think it has a lot to do with the education system in this country and what's becoming the entire world. I mean, I think there's some countries that are moving away, but that's a different point.
There's some countries that are way better and way more advanced than America.
Oh yeah, but that's a different topic. In this country, I mean, think about when you were a child, right? What do you learn? You're forced to stand up and do the fucking Pledge of Allegiance every day. You're forced to basically just memorize all of the information that your teachers, especially when it comes to history and learning about this country, you're just forced to take this information, memorize it, and regurgitate it, right?
That's why this book is in existence.
That's not learning, in my opinion. I mean, Howard Zinn, I'm going to quote him. I mean, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but he says, where is it? Where is this quote here? Okay, this is, I'm heavily paraphrasing. Is this society presents education and knowledge as technical problems of excellence and not as tools for contending social classes, races, nations. So basically, all of this quote unquote knowledge that you're receiving in school is basically just a technical problem to pass your test and advance in other grades, and not to better yourself. Okay,
Right.
I mean,
You were sold just enough.
Right. Exactly. Real knowledge, real wisdom is learning how to solve a problem creatively. I mean, in my opinion, every test should be an open book test. Okay, because you should be able.
Every test should be a hands-on test. It should be a fucking mechanical hands-on test.
Your test should be this, right? You're given a tidbit of information on whatever it is that class was teaching you, right? You should be able to take that information. It should be presented right in front of you, right? Because that's how it is in the real world. You'll have access to any information that you need, especially nowadays. And you should have to solve a problem using whatever information is available to you. That's not it. That's what's called free thinking. That's what's called creative problem solving, but that's not what's taught to us. It's just regurgitation. It's memorization. And then what happens is that you end up being conditioned to think that anybody that is a higher authority, like when you're a kid, it's your teachers, and then when you're an adult, it's the media, it's the government. Anybody that's a higher authority than you, whatever they say is fucking golden rule.
Yeah. You know what I was going to say?
You don't even think anymore.
Yep.
That's why somebody like Elon Musk should scare the shit out of the government, especially over the last couple of days with going against the whole COVID-19. Like someone like Elon Musk, I loved it when they challenged his research. I was like, if there's anyone in the world who could research properly, it's probably fucking him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's like a modern day genius. And you don't even see that much anymore. You know what I mean? Because of this.
You have to be born that. We have to be born with that level of intellect, because you can't. It's very hard to come from this educational system and just propel yourself that way. You have to be kind of born with that. Like I said, it's just you're taught that excellence and knowledge is just regurgitation of information forced fed to you. You're not taught how to think. It's a very rare thing.
Who remembers back in school, man, where you just had a theoretical conversation with the class about a certain situation, or even a conversation like this? You could learn a lot by having a conversation with other people like we do on podcasts, right? You hear other people's point of view, you hear their ideas, and you speak theoretically. Are any of us experts? No, but you learn by listening to other people and having a general conversation. But you don't do that in school. You literally, like you're saying, this is what the teacher tells you. You cannot question it, and if you do, then you fail.
You have to spit it out.
And also nowadays, what you see more is, so there's no chance of going through school and becoming a genius. You have to be born with it, right? You were saying earlier, Zoo. And even some of the smart people that you knew from school aren't geniuses. They're just really good at memorizing, basically, and regurgitating. And some of them are smart and can figure this shit out on their own. But nowadays, how many times do you hear of a school or a special ruling that's going into the education system where all they do is make it easier for the dumber kids to pass?
Yep.
You hear that all the time now, and I'm putting it in a very horrendous manner. They'll probably say challenge kids or whatever, but they take it where now the teachers are held accountable. The teacher has to make it even easier and more spoon-fed to you so you could pass this memorization class. And now nobody's learning. And now nobody's learning anything.
You know why they might do that? You know why they might do that? Because if
they're already brainwashing you.
Yeah. Plus, if everybody's failing, that might lead to strife. That might lead to revolt and uprising. If everybody's being crushed by the system, think of it even in terms of school, right? If every single student is failing, isn't that going to lead to some sort of change from underneath? You know what I mean? Eventually. So no, it's easy. It's easier to keep people happy by just moving the goalposts, making it easier for everybody to pass.
And nowadays, so many people, like, you know, now that like we're older and I know teachers in different schools and I know security officers in different schools and I know people who just work throughout the school system. And nowadays, like, as long as like the kid comes home with like a 70, like as long as the kid's coming home with like a C plus average, like the parents don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? Like, and this is what happens now. The teachers make it so easy that they can't even fail a kid anymore. Otherwise, they'll lose their job.
Mhm.
And so now these kids are coming home with C's and B's, and their parents don't care. It's perfectly fine. Like, oh, you tried, you got your best, and it's just a whole generation of dumber people, brainwashed people, and now the government can take away a little bit more because if I give you this stuff that doesn't matter, that makes you happy and free, we can fuck shit up on this end.
They're dumbing down the population in order to just perpetuate their fucking rule
the fact
over
that
everybody.
The fact that people are, and this is very right wing side of me, but this is something I don't think I'll ever break on. The fact that people are anti Second Amendment blows my mind. Blows my mind. Because listen, you don't need to own a gun. You don't need to learn how to use it. You don't have to be in, before I got involved in guns, I never saw a gun ever. Maybe like when I was young and I went to my cousin's house and he used to hunt, he had a gun on his wall. Like that's the biggest experience I had for X number of years in my life with guns. Like you really don't need to get involved. But the fact that you're willing to disarm an entire nation based on how you feel about it is beyond me. We're in the middle of a lockdown right now, and gun stores were forced to be closed because they were selling out of weapons and ammunition. You know what I mean? Like, what does that tell you? Like, just think how bad things would be if there was no more Second Amendment.
Yeah.
Specifically right now as well. Like that just proves how uneducated you are. You're begging to be enslaved again almost. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
they are so ingrained. They are
Yep.
so brainwashed that they don't even realize what's happening right in front of their fucking eyes. I mean, dude, I identify much more, and I am don't, by no means am I a liberal, by no means, but I do identify more with the left than with the right. But one thing that I am fucking adamant about is that everybody in this country should be allowed to have a means of defending themselves. I'm not going to say a weapon because I don't want it to be misconstrued. A way of defending themselves, and I don't. They shouldn't be able to have access to like a fucking fully automatic fucking light machine gun. That you don't need that. There's something to defend yourself. A fucking pistol, a shotgun, a fucking lever action, a semi-automatic gun. Something to fucking defend yourself with. Because if it comes down to it, if the government does become this incredibly oppressive entity, right? That is
when they overstep their boundaries.
Right.
Right, exactly. That's the point I'm getting at. There needs to be a revolution.
Guns give you leverage, right? Guns give you leverage. Now you have the leverage to oppose that.
What's the quote? A well-regulated militia keeps the government in line, or something like that.
Yeah.
There's an old quote about a well-regulated militia.
Yeah, you're super.
That basically.
Good.
Yeah, go on.
I was gonna say you're super brainwashed liberal person too is always gonna say, oh well, good luck with what you and your shotgun are gonna do against the military, tanks, and fighter jets. Okay, yes, right. My shotgun is not gonna do anything against an M1 Abrams tank, but do we forget that M1 Abrams tank is piloted by another human being who might be on my side, right? He might not agree with the thing the government is doing. The military might split. You know what I mean? And so now. The military is made up of human beings who are free thinkers and whatnot. Yes, they're supposed to follow orders and whatnot.
They are very brainwashed.
Right. They are, right? But in a situation where like that, some there might be a faction, like a faction might split off. You know what I mean? Yeah. Now that faction could join with the armed general population, and there you go. Now you have yes. If there's 1 million people in the military, there's 350 million people in the country. Even if they have.
Well, I got 2 points.
If anybody was going to know that side, it'd be you.
Yeah,
I got 2 points. You ever see like on any of your like animal documentaries, like the reason? But this is the truth though. The reason the ant colony is so powerful and so strong is because when they come up to a larger insect. That one insect might, at like a swing, take out 3 ants. But for those 3 ants, there's 3,000 more.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
You know what I'm saying? So
Good
yeah,
analogy.
fine. There's one person in a tank, but if there's 100,000 of us, once he's out of ammo, he's still gonna have to deal with what?
Yeah, dude.
90,000 people. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Those BBC fucking videos of those ants just wiping out those fucking those huge hornets, dude.
Oh, it's insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't fucking don't sleep on ants, dude. Ants are super fucking strong too. You ever see ants carry shit? An ant could carry massive things. Imagine if we could carry stuff like that. We'd be walking around with houses, like carrying them over our heads. We can't do that.
And then my second point was a lot of times when these when these governors try and do gun confiscation orders and stuff like that, and they try and sign into like state law that if you have an AR-15 past a certain date, we're going to send the sheriff to your house to confiscate it. And time again, you see like these sheriffs coming out like on live TV, like you could sign that law into effect.
Yeah,
I will not order a single individual in my precinct to do that. We are not sending men to go and fucking confiscate guns.
Yeah, people forget that the people that are going to carry out those laws are people.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say, could you imagine? Especially in some place like Texas or something.
Yeah.
They
knocking on your door.
On the, like before they even got to the door.
They'd be killing cops daily.
Yep.
They wouldn't even make it to the porch. Yeah. You would need a whole SWAT team. Yeah. You would need a whole SWAT team and you're still risking people's lives.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's also a disconnect in this country between people who live in the city and people who live in a rural area of the country. One of the greatest fucking
we say this all the time.
Things I've seen comments about the difference is if you live in a city, the police could get to you to help you in like 2 minutes, right? Like the NYPD's response time is, I think, like 2 to 3 minutes, real quick. If you live somewhere like I do or somewhere real deep in the sticks, it might take the cops 45 minutes to get to you. You're dead after 2 minutes of somebody breaking into your house. If you don't have a gun and someone breaks into your house and the cops are 45 minutes away, you have no means to protect yourself against somebody. You need a gun. So someone in the city who has no need of a gun because the cops are 2 minutes away cannot dictate policy for somebody who's 45 minutes away from the police and might be killed because they have no means to protect themselves. It's different situations.
No coincidence that those more densely populated cities are much more liberal.
Yeah.
Because it's way easier.
It's almost like a hub. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
People who have those views, sadly, the majority of them would never last in a rural place. You couldn't put those people in a fucking cabin in the middle of a ranch, and they would never thrive.
Most of this country is like that.
Yeah. Oh, easily. Yeah. Everybody just thinks
of the population lives in cities now.
Yeah. Everybody just thinks everywhere you go is a big city. Then you got to they were complaining about, for the states reopening. They were talking about like Montana and North and South Dakota and Wyoming. Wyoming's like the least populated state in all of America. If there's one state that doesn't need to worry about reopening, it's probably Wyoming, where your neighbor is like 2.5 miles away from you. Like
your social distance
you
by
move,
default.
They never had to close in the first place.
Yeah, you move out there because you already wanted to social distance. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're not going out there to make friends
That's a good
either.
point. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're getting angry. That's because you live in a 15-story apartment building with 500 people, and there's not 500 people in 5 miles of this person's house.
Right. More people might live in your building, right, like than your entire town out there.
Yeah. Than an entire fucking city. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
And in places like that, it might take the police 45 minutes to get to you. You know what I mean? 3 fucking dudes walk onto your 3-acre property and you see these guys in your backyard. And you call the cops. Oh, we'll be there in 15 minutes. It's going to take them 2 minutes to get across my yard. What do you mean you're going to be here in 15 minutes? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a different situation, and nobody understands that.
Right. That's what my point is. You cannot that's not something that could just be applied universally throughout everywhere. Okay, maybe in the city you don't need everybody. Doesn't need, like you said, a light machine gun if you're living in an apartment building. You know what I mean? But you can't. Someone living in that situation is a totally different situation as someone living out in the country. You can't just make a policy. It doesn't work. It doesn't apply. The land, the people, everything is not exactly the same This country is very different, diverse, right? There's a lot of different situations
Nobody
throughout
seems
everywhere.
to understand that, dude. This whole country, I mean, the whole country, the whole fucking world is a big fucking gray area. Nothing is black and white.
Yes.
But they pitch it to you that way.
Yes.
I mean, Democrat versus fucking Republican. Literally, black people versus fucking white people. I mean, rich versus fucking poor. Heterosexual versus fucking LGBTQ, whatever the fucking acronym is. I don't even know anymore. They just keep adding letters.
They just keep adding letters to it.
I mean, and I'm not trying to be insensitive, and if that's your thing, like, whatever. It doesn't affect me. Fine.
Yeah.
Whatever.
That's where stuff like that is where I fall on the left with, like the fact that like a state, it's illegal to have gay marriage. I don't care. Just let them get. You force them to pay taxes. Let them get married. Who gives a shit? You know what I mean? Like,
it means nothing.
I don't give a fuck who you sleep with. Like,
Yeah, it doesn't
You know
affect
what I mean?
us in any way. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah. How there could still be laws on it is beyond me.
Let them love
You
each
know?
other. Who cares? That's less of a reason for them to go and want to fucking fight you. If you really want to fucking rule everybody.
Think about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I don't even like.
But it's manufactured. Homophobia, all these new phobias are all manufactured. And you guys were talking earlier about the book, how racism was manufactured to keep us divided.
It was.
Now
It was
every week there's a new phobia. Trump could say something about puppies, and there'd be a puppy phobia expert on CNN the next day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, when all these phobias, did you hear about any of these phobias 4 years ago? I'm not even gonna give it a full 5. You know, what did they call Trump? Xenophobia for being, xenophobic. That was the very first time I ever heard that term. It's just, and I'm not saying that it's an incorrect term. First time I ever heard this new phobia. It's all manufactured. It was given a title. It was given a title so you could identify against it.
It is, man. Even, the book goes into, like the beginnings of the slave trade. And I'm just remembering some interesting points about how racism really was just invented in a way. Because the book goes into how, a lot of European explorers, there was even, I don't know if you remember, Zoo, there's even like accounts of Venetians, people from like the Kingdom of Venice going to Africa to like Mali and some of those kingdoms there. And then, in their accounts writing like, wow, these are beautiful advanced civilizations of dark-skinned people, who are like honorable, good, whatnot. And this is way before, discovery of the New World, colonialism and all that bullshit.
This is in the book. I haven't got to that part yet.
Yep.
I haven't gotten to that part.
You know what I mean? Like, this is kind of before that whole slave trade and that racism idea was made. Like, there's accounts of Europeans going there and like respecting Africans in a way. It wasn't until, I'm gonna be honest with you, it wasn't until like the beginnings of like this capitalist system came into play until racism was
because it became all about the entire world. I mean, the capitalistic fucking view just has dominated the entire fucking world because it just became so advantageous to people who just already had so much fucking money because it just allowed them to just accumulate more wealth. Right, exactly. So then, I mean, it's unfortunate, but the European way just became just
dominant,
basically the way.
Money makes the world go around. And it's funny that you
said. Yeah. Because I think personally, I mean, this is kind of a tangent, but I think the Native Americans just had it right.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Their society, their civilization.
Right. Some of them were fucking batshit crazy. Let's not.
But how far would they evolve to, like, were they really on a path to like society? And I don't mean to like be insensitive.
Dude, what are you talking about? They had their own tribes, bro.
Yeah, they had their own tribes, but not until
miles and miles and miles.
That's but they and nothing's wrong with it, but they lived in tents, whereas
you see, you're looking
until
at it
like the colonies.
You're looking at it from the European point of view. What's wrong with living?
Right, exactly.
They were living a more natural lifestyle off the land in harmony with nature. What's really wrong with that? No, they didn't have machines and guns and things like that. But they thrived in a way. They thrived in their own way. It was a more natural lifestyle.
Yeah. Right. They literally fucking thrived. They had a balance. They had a balance with the fucking land that they lived on. I mean, it's the total fucking opposite of what we have now. That's why there's fucking global warming and the fucking ocean is
right.
Is
maybe they had it
trash.
right, bro. Yeah. And let's be honest,
Right,
dude,
that's
Yeah,
what I
that
think.
makes
I mean,
sense.
they were not pushovers either. You know, as much as you want to say they lived in tents and whatnot, it's not like Europeans
No, I
came
never-
here
I
and
never
within
said
10
they were,
years
yeah.
wiped out the Native Americans. When did Columbus land in the New World? In 1492? Bro, the last Native American,
took hundreds of years.
the Comanches were not forced onto reservations until the early 1900s. So from 1492 to within basically one person's lifetime ago from when we were alive, where the Native America is not 100% subdued.
The Comanches were also the most fucking savage,
Yeah,
bro.
that's what I'm
Those
saying
were
though.
the-
So
those
as
were the
much as
ones
you
in
want
the
to
movie
say,
Halftime.
they weren't advanced, they were able to withstand.
I didn't
that-
mean like, but I'm thinking more of like modern society. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
hold on,
Like,
wait a second.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know. What you
They're
mean.
the ones.
yeah,
Where do you think we got guerrilla warfare from, dude? From the Native
oh
Americans.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
This whole lining up bullshit on a field.
yeah. There's also some Italian
European
precedent to
side, they were
that.
getting
There's
fucking
also some
massacred.
Italian precedent to guerrilla warfare. Some Italian, I
Oh,
think his
really?
name was Giuseppe Garibaldi. He invented a form of guerrilla warfare, I believe. I could be wrong.
Yeah, but when?
Recently.
Like a new?
I'll look it up. But I know what you mean. Yeah,
Because the Native
definitely.
Americans were hiding behind trees and shit. They were ambushing the fucking red coats and the blue coats, whatever the fuck. And then the military learned from that. They were like, why are we going to line up on a field? Why are we just going to? I mean, that was the honorable quote unquote way to fight back. But if you can
of
lose,
course
less
they
people-
took the best of what they found. Yeah,
yeah,
you know,
I mean,
they took everything else. Yeah. I had a good point before when you said the invention of capitalism. Oh, racism wasn't around until capitalism started, but I can't remember my point now. Fucking hate doing this.
You know, what was a point I wanted to bring up before, Zoo, when we were talking about the education system and all that stuff. One of I wanted to cap it on. Not only does the education system, the way it is, basically indoctrinate you into the system, you know, of regurgitating information and consumerism, it also puts the first shackle on your hand, like on your chains of debt. Because when you go to school and then you might be, you know, like you were saying before, Chris, you might be hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. That's the only debt that can't be forgiven in the country for some reason. It's a shit ton of debt. And you kind of like need to get that college education to get a really good job. So not only does you're almost paying
College.
for and putting, like I said, that first chain on yourself to like you're paying and putting your own chain on to indoctrinate yourself into the system that crushes people. Literally, you're doing it to yourself almost.
Yeah. They basically took the college education system and turned it into a scam.
Yeah,
a scam. You know what I mean? Like,
100,000%.
it's funny. It's funny because you know I don't know if you guys watch Rick and Morty, but Rick is always anti-school. He's like, school's for losers. It's a big scam. And like now that you guys bring things up like this, and like the way I feel about the education system, like it's a fucking scam. It's ridiculous.
It is. You need it.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Yeah. And if you don't like, you hear about all the states that like right now they can't do it, but they want to like outlaw like homeschooling. God forbid, there's one kid who gets homeschooled and is taught to think differently.
Yeah, right.
They want to outlaw.
That's a good point, dude. That's probably why.
You're not going to send that kid to learn our education system. And this new thing with I think Bill Gates and someone else is looking to the future of New York's education system. Hell the fuck no. People really think like Corona is like it's never going to leave, and like this is like people are just going to be schooled on laptops, and we're just going to plop our kids in front of laptops
I'm on the
for the rest of their lives.
The Bill Gates stuff. I don't think Bill Gates is this arch villain everyone makes him out to be.
I am with you.
I think Bill Gates has. If you look, why don't you actually go look up the historical facts of things Bill Gates has done? He's actually a really nice dude. He's donated a lot of his money back to charity. My opinion, just like your opinion, Chris, of Bill Gates is this evil guy who's trying to destroy the world. My opinion of Bill Gates is he's somebody who made so much money that he doesn't really care about Microsoft and all those things anymore. He's taken on a personal hobby of trying to help people because he's got fuck you money. He's got so much fuck you money, he just happens to want to use it to help people. That's his hobby.
Yeah, but he's gonna make a lot more. He's gonna make a lot more money too now.
Are you sure? Did you actually do the research? Are any of these things that he's doing?
He wouldn't be doing it if he wasn't making money.
Are you sure? He already has fuck you money. He doesn't need to make any more money from stuff like that.
He has a family. I mean, Chris has got a point. I mean, he's putting his name on all this shit. If he really
all of his
just wants
all of his wealth,
people,
yeah,
he'd do it anonymously.
All of his wealth, his children are not allowed to inherit any of his wealth.
Foundation.
All of his wealth, just put this out there, all of his wealth, his children are not allowed to inherit any of his wealth. When he dies, in his will, all of his wealth goes to charity. His
That's fine, but
children are only allowed to keep whatever they make on their own.
Right, but with the Gates name and Gates being his father and the connection Gates has, these kids like day one out of college.
Yeah, no shit.
Here's your $900,000 a year job.
Right, I know.
So fine,
but they've
Daddy's
still made.
I'm not going to inherit it.
Daddy's $50 million ain't going to go to. Yeah, I understand, because what are they supposed to do? Kill themselves? You know what I mean? Like they're Gates' children. Yes, of course. There's their privilege because they're Bill Gates' kids. Yeah. They can't undo that now. It's too late. But they're not going to inherit his hundreds of billions of dollars or whatever.
Warren Buffett, same thing, right? Doesn't he have something in his will where his kids ain't getting like?
I wouldn't be surprised. I like him too.
Give away all his money.
I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know for certain, but
that's what I heard. I mean, I'm just this complete speculation.
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
What
I just
they just said you're not going to get any of this money, and then when he dies, a portion of it still goes to them.
I'm sure they're not leaving their fucking families poor, but I'm saying like, okay, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates are worth billions and billions of dollars. The point is, they're not just handing their family
that's fine.
A lifetime of just do whatever.
Just because you're not handing over money doesn't mean you can't be evil either.
Okay.
I'm sure I'm sure they're going to set their families up to be very comfortable.
I have it right here for Bill Gates. Bill and Melinda have said that they intend to leave their 3 children $10 million each as their inheritance, with only $30 million kept in the family. They are expected to give away about 99.96% of their wealth to charity when they die. So yeah, I mean, it's still $10 million each. It's still a shit ton of money, but it's not. It's
10
not.
$10 million. If you can take that money and invest it wisely, you never have to work again.
With $10 million and Gates being your last name, you could make another $20 million in a day.
But I mean, we're talking about a guy that's like $100 billion.
You would have to make it. That's the point. Is you would have to. Make
I know. Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
it's
$10 million.
Listen, I'm not worried about I'm not worried about his kids. Whatever he leaves his kids doesn't change how I feel about it. And these charity organizations doesn't mean that he's still on a good path either. Do either of you believe the Clinton Foundation is a good charity, an upstanding charity?
Well,
that's apples and oranges, dude. You're talking about Hillary Clinton versus Bill Gates are two different people.
I don't care. There's no apples and oranges here. There's some charities that are corrupt as well. You don't think a charity is a tax-free organization? You don't think the establishment has come up with their own fucking charities
100%.
to get in more money?
So all charities are bad then. You're generalizing all charities.
Fine, I'll generalize. I don't care. But just because Bill Gates is going to leave his money to a charity organization doesn't make him a good guy either. That charity organization could be just as corrupt as the Clinton Foundation.
What you're doing is you're taking Hillary's evil. You're taking Hillary's evil charity and you're justifying the fact that you think Bill Gates is because Hillary's is bad. You're just saying, look, yes, you are. Yes, you're presenting no facts. You're just saying you're presenting no facts. You're just saying, look, there's this person. She's giving money to charity.
So then I'll have a job
charity.
on CNN any day now.
Maybe
CNN
it will.
Should be emailing me any moment.
You should.
What I'm saying is the fact that just because he's donating to a charity doesn't mean it's an upstanding, non-corrupt charity either that he's donating it to.
Nobody is saying that.
Yeah.
Literally nobody's saying that. But
we're still being challenged, though.
Yeah, that's what this podcast is about. I'm Googling what their foundation is. I've heard of it. The Gates Foundation.
I feel like you're taking it too much of like, okay, well,
I choose not to trust the guy. People choose to be anti-Second Amendment, and I choose to not trust.
There's nothing wrong with you thinking that. I'm just giving you a counter opinion.
And the one thing, if he comes up with the vaccine, they could lock me up before I take that.
You're basically saying, "Oh, he just got money, so he's evil."
He's a bad guy. Yeah, you fucking communist pig.
Oh well.
I mean, and look, that's opinion. That's fine. But we were just kind of like.
But you guys have no facts. I might not be presenting. I might not be presenting any facts, but you guys have no facts that I'm wrong.
No, we don't. We don't. But we're giving benefit of the doubt.
I presented multiple facts to you already about how he's leaving only a little bit of money to his children out of like 90, 100%
That's
of his wealth.
fine.
I'm looking up
That's
their.
fine.
Oh, but that has nothing to do with the charity.
Yeah, it still doesn't claim. If you guys have no facts that I have no facts that he's this upstanding citizen that you guys claim him to be, and you have no facts that he's
What was
this
his
evil
name?
guy.
I never said he was an I just said I don't know if his purpose is necessarily
Evil or not? Yeah,
Yeah.
I choose it
I
to be
never
evil.
vouched for him. I never said he's not evil. I never said nothing like that. I mean, the Clintons, I think we could all agree.
What was the name of that episode of ours, Chris? The more opinion
For
than
what?
fact, more men than
Yeah.
usual.
Yeah,
Yeah, it still applies.
always going to apply. CNN is, they've been on for the past 3 years running on that playbook.
If you look at his website, the Bill and Melinda Gates GatesFoundation.org, it's very general, but it's talking about how they're looking to help just poverty around the world.
Just like every politician is saying they're going to help
that's a good point.
poverty in their local district.
Mhm. You're talking very
giving away money.
yeah. Your view is very cynical, though. Your view personally is very cynical. So I mean, I could bring up, Elon Musk's charity. Are you gonna feel the same way about his charity for whatever? I'm just saying
haven't read
in general.
anything.
You see, you're giving him the benefit of the doubt.
So, well, that's because listen. If all of a sudden I started seeing things negative about him, I would question it. You know what I mean? I might give Elon Musk the benefit of the doubt and Bill Gates not the benefit of the doubt, and I could be wrong about either of them.
Oh, why?
But because I have free choice.
Well, why would you do either?
I have free choice. From
But you've been influenced by
things that
shit that
I
you've read about Bill Gates, I feel, because of this whole situation. Did you give a fuck about Bill Gates, his charity stuff before the coronavirus situation?
No.
Right, because
No,
What about
until-
those videos that were talking about the fucking Bill Gates trying to influence New York education? Did that
happened?
bias
The what?
you again? Remember those videos? The videos. Remember those that Luch was sharing? I think it was Luch that was sharing them. And one of them talked about Bill Gates and how. Oh no, Skaggs. I think it was an article that you shared, if I'm not mistaken. Not a
Maybe, I
video.
don't remember.
It was an article that you shared, or somebody shared.
I don't remember
I
this.
don't fucking know. Yeah, but it was an article, and then.
What's the
It was
gist of
talking
it?
about how it was a very biased article. Skaggs, you remember, it was a very biased article. It presented zero facts.
About Bill Gates?
Yes, all it did was badmouth him.
Yeah, I remember that.
Of his initiative to improve the education system in New York. Give zero facts on what he was planning to do. All it did was just shit on anything he's ever done.
Yeah, what we're saying, Chris, take this article, for example. I remember now pretty clearly. It was literally an article that had no facts in it, but it was written in a way that sounded very professional. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the writing of the article sounded like...
typical...
Sounded like a very educated, well-read, thought-out person wrote it. And if you read it, you'd be like, wow, this guy Bill Gates is really a fucking scumbag. But then if you actually think about it, like I read it and I was like, there's no fucking information in here. It's just talking shit about Bill Gates. And then it's wrote in a very convincing manner. Just like I think after that, you guys remember the Joseph Kony thing back in 2012, the video on YouTube? That was all horseshit. That guy never. It was basically this guy in Africa.
This video?
It was a video on YouTube that went viral.
Oh yes.
About this guy in Africa who imprisoned children and he killed kids and forced kids into sex slaves and things like that.
Where he is
and it was
now.
very convincing. And they had like a store where you could buy merchandise and whatnot, and it ended up being totally bullshit. But people believed it because it was convincing. The video was convincing. You just got I'm skeptical of everything, even when people are, you know what I mean? Like I'm skeptical of people being skeptical. Let's put it that way about stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm skeptical about Bill Gates.
That's fine.
Listen,
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being skeptical.
I'm
just challenging you.
Yeah. I hear things of, the vaccine he wants to have, including a microchip that he puts in you. I'm not for that shit. You know what I mean? So
okay, you're not right.
That makes me.
You know who's 100% working on a microchip to put in you? Elon Musk.
Oh, Elon Musk, right. And I wouldn't allow it to be put in me either.
Yeah, the
Neuralink, right? That is literally a microchip they want to put in your brain, right? Does that make Elon Musk an evil genius? No.
Now he's on my shit list then.
All right.
Yeah, I never, so
that's where the captain draws the line, shit in the brain.
Yeah.
but you also...
I don't go out looking for
Yeah,
this
I don't know.
information either. So, I come across stuff I see about Bill Gates and I make my opinion. I've only seen stuff coming out about Elon Musk, minus like the truck and stuff that he's been producing and shit. I don't see
Cybertruck?
any stories or pieces about what he wants to do. So I don't look for this shit. So when I find something that I don't like, then I make my opinion about it.
Yeah,
You know?
all I'm saying is to just be skeptical of that source you're finding it from. Maybe that person just hates Bill Gates or is trying to push a narrative for a specific
but
reason,
It could be that their agenda is just the
not
opposite
aligned
of
with
Yeah.
Bill Gates's, right?
or whoever else's agenda. You have everything you have to be skeptical. Everything.
You say it yourself.
Doesn't
all the
matter
time,
what.
Cap.
Nothing's by coincidence. It's all done by design.
Yeah, you
All
say it
right,
all.
you have to be a cynic in this world. I mean, as ridiculous as it sounds, as morbid as it sounds, you have to be cynical.
Yeah,
It's the
you're
only
right.
way to keep yourself even keeled, my opinion, with all the fucking bullshit that is force fed to you on television and in the fucking news. It's just
I 100%
you gotta
agree with you,
just
bro.
come at it with this. Okay, they're trying to fuck me in some way, kind of view,
Yeah.
and then just
hmm
take it in pieces.
Isn't that
Do
a
your own
shame?
research. That's it. Just
Is-
don't take. All I'm trying to say is just don't take what is presented to you at face value. Just read into it, even if it's just a little bit.
Yeah, people could just be trolling
Well, I-
too, bro. You could be like reading some guy who's a troll and just is like, let me just fuck with people and get, you know what I mean? They just
Trust
rile
me, I
people up.
do plenty of
Absolutely.
research, and that's why there's some conspiracy
Mhm.
theories that I follow and think are real, and then there's some conspiracy theories that are just the most insane things I've ever heard.
Yeah.
But it's still a topic where people won't all agree on.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
So-
I know what you mean, and there's nothing wrong with what you're saying at all. I'm just giving you a counterpoint. But let me give you an example. I think I mentioned this to you guys. You guys have, I think I mentioned to you guys definitely that Twitter handle Titania McGrath. Do you guys remember when I mentioned this to you? It is a comedian who is made a fake Twitter handle, and he's just pretending to be a super liberal feminist identity politics keyboard Twitter warrior, right? Everything that this Twitter handle, Titania McGrath's tweets, is way over the top, gender politics, identity politics, whatever, to the point where people don't realize that it's a comedian doing it and will comment under it like, yeah, you go, girl, you're right.
This is their new leader.
Right, exactly. Meanwhile, it's fake and it's all just a sarcasm,
Right.
like a parody. You know what I mean? But people are
That's how
dumb
cults
enough
get
to
started.
actually, believe that and think it's real. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's someone trolling people, and it's funny. And if you understand that someone trolling people, it's funny. But if you're an idiot, you don't even realize it's somebody trolling somebody.
Right.
You might listen to
But
what this Titania McGrath has to say. Take it seriously.
Dude, that proves our point before about the education system. And
Yeah.
people just don't think for themselves, bro.
No
They take
question.
whatever's presented to them. Oh my God, this is fact. This,
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
it came from
My teacher
the
said
fucking
it.
internet.
Yeah.
Because it came from some point of like some kind of media outlet or just something that they thought was a higher authority than themselves.
Yeah. And it's amazing how you're from like kindergarten through your last day of college, you're not prepared one bit for the real world.
You're not.
No,
You know what I
dude,
mean? Like-
you are
Like
not.
you become an accounting, and the only time you took accounting was for like 3 years in college. Meanwhile, you've been going to school since you were, a 5-year-old. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like you were just taught basic math, and you memorized it, and you passed it through. Now you're sitting behind your desk, completely unprepared,
Yeah, just
and
like
in
Dude,
debt.
that's what I was saying before, that every test should be an open book test, because in the real world, and this is something that I encounter almost
Yeah.
every fucking day in my job, bro. Like I got an accounting degree from Baruch College, one of the top recognized fucking finance schools in the country, right? They did not fucking prepare me at all for the real fucking world, right?
Mhm.
It was just rote memorization for these tests. You go out in the world and it's like, okay, you have Google, right? This insanely powerful search engine that you could look up anything,
Mhm.
right? And I'm forced almost on a daily basis to use the information that's available to me to apply it to the current situation
Yes.
at my job, because what I learned
Didn't help you.
in school did not
Yeah.
help me. Like, okay, it taught me like the basics in order to get by, but then you have to take those basics and apply it to your current situation, which in the real world, your current situation is by far and away different from what your fucking little bullshit textbook
Yeah.
example, Gabe.
You can't even refer to your textbook for what
No,
you do.
dude, I tried. I tried.
Yeah.
Fucking textbook is garbage.
They're not even a good.
Google.
When you think about it, they're not a good method of getting information quickly. You gotta like how you know what I mean. Like you on Google, you could look something up real quick, bam, you get it. With a textbook, you gotta like I enjoy reading this book, right? But if I needed to look something up about the people's history of the United States, I ain't gonna like sit here and go through the fucking the index and slowly like look it up. It's gonna take forever. You know what I mean? I read this book because I enjoy reading a book, but like a textbook in school is not even a good method of teaching anymore. You know what I mean? We're in 2020 and we're still using paper books to teach kids. They should have advanced it in some way by now.
Yep. Can't use a calculator on your math test. Meanwhile, the second you read the class, use it all day.
The problem with Google is that look, anybody could post anything online, right? So you want to have a way to fucking validate whatever it is that, like, if you're a teacher, you want to have a way to validate whatever it is that you're teaching.
Control the narrative, too.
Right, obviously. But McGraw-Hill and all these other fucking textbook companies, I mean, these you're talking about very profitable companies who have their own fucking agenda in this world. I mean, they want to maintain...
selling us garbage.
Right?
Well, I was going to say, they're the ones printing the U.S. history textbooks that omits all the shit that this book talks about. You know?
No shit, right? Because guess what? They're selling their textbook for $400 fucking dollars. They don't want the people to buy this textbook to realize that they're getting fucked over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Think when there's
text that is bullshit.
Yeah, and think when there's a book that people don't agree with. Like, let's say if like a new company, like let's say if we made, the Two Doomed Men, textbook line, and in all of our history books we took chapters out of that book, it'd probably never get approved. They'd force us to take certain information out. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't up to our standards. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
a lot of the shit that's in this book, I guarantee you, is stuff that wouldn't be up to their standards.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
you got to think, like, back in the day when they used to burn books, it wasn't, it was always about, like, because we don't want you to learn what this book is trying to teach.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so that's what brings upon a book burning. They did that a lot in, like, Nazi Germany, right? The book burnings.
Yeah, dude. Probably any book that a Jew wrote, they probably burned.
Yeah.
Or anything that went against the state.
They don't want you to learn what they had to say.
So the Catholic Church was the number one fucking burner of books and things.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Over the years. Yeah.
Dude, don't even get me started. I could talk about all
that's
day.
that's a podcast on its own for another day.
What a fucking ridiculous entity that is.
If you write something, was this book ever banned from stores or anything like that?
No, I don't
think
I don't know.
So.
Skaggs, you said some CIA director or whatever that retired wrote a book and caught a lot of flack for it. It was banned for a while or whatever. I think Joe Rogan might have promoted it.
Well, Joe Rogan just had the guy on. The guy didn't work for the CIA. I think he's just an investigative journalist, and he for like 20 years was writing a book about the CIA's mind control program. And,
but it got banned for a while, right?
It's not that it got banned. It's that he was trying to get accurate information, and that entailed interviewing people who worked at the CIA, and they were doing everything they could to try and stop him.
I feel like
that's a whole nother
somewhere
topic,
along the line.
That's a black hole you want to go down.
No, but I'm saying what I'm saying though is somewhere along the line, I feel like if a book is treated in a way where it's banned from bookstores and they don't want you having it, it's got to be chock full of truth.
It's possible. Dude, look at right now how YouTube is banning all videos that give any sort of contrary information for coronavirus. It's just another method of controlling information.
Dude, they try and knock off pro-Trump videos. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
It's right in our first.
They do blatantly, and they do it.
I mean, yes, YouTube, I guess, is a private entity, so they can do whatever they want. But whatever happened to freedom of the fucking press, man?
Yeah.
Like,
freedom of speech.
Right, exactly.
Second Amendment was written in case the First Amendment didn't work.
That's such an interesting thing to think about. Like you're saying, yes, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, they're all private entities, so I guess they can kind of do whatever they want. But then again, they're so big that they shape public opinion and narrative, right?
They have lobbyists influencing.
You know what I mean?
Millions and millions of people on Facebook, but they can't see this story about Trump.
Public opinion,
whether they want to or not.
Private companies, is that right? Yeah. Should these private companies be maybe they should be forced to it should just be the Wild Wild West. You could just post whatever the fuck you want, and
yeah, dude, absolutely.
Maybe they under it they could write, we think this is wrong, but they can't just block it from you seeing it or something. I think
How
that would
come
be
you
more
think-
fair than the way they have it now.
Maybe
How-
maybe
how
put a
come-
disclaimer.
Disclaimer: this has questionable content in it, but they're not
Yeah,
blocking
but they
you
could
from
also-
viewing
This
it.
is something that YouTube and its affiliates does not
Yeah.
agree with. Yada
Right.
yada yada.
But they could
legally,
also-
it's bullshit.
They could also put that disclaimer that they have the right to take it away in those 25-page legal binding documents where
they
we
do.
all skip
They
them
do.
and just press
Absolutely.
They
accept.
do put it in there.
You know?
Absolutely.
That's how they're able
But,
to get away with
absolutely.
banning and blocking all this shit.
Yeah, but I think almost every single state, a large amount of the states are in the process of coming up with a antitrust lawsuit for Google, and this is also why Mark Zuckerberg's has been questioned on Capitol Hill several times,
Mhm.
because there's actual proof that like during the 2016 election, Google straight up fucked like poll results where you could be searching for Trump and
Right,
only
it
like
won't
Hillary
show up.
Clinton stuff would show up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that. Google is supposed to be a free search engine. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Where you could search up the most sick shit you want. You could search up anything you could possibly think
Yeah,
of.
well, it's only
But you're gonna
fucking
change-
free because they sell your fucking search results.
Yeah.
The
Right.
highest fucking
Hey,
bidder.
dude. Look, it's
Yeah.
2020, but the same shit is going on back to the 1600s. It's just the
Yeah.
tools are more sophisticated.
Like I
Back
said
then, they
in
had
the
the printing
beginning,
press.
exactly
Now we
at
got
the beginning.
Google.
Their tools are more sophisticated, but it's the same shit.
Same fucking story. Yep. Yep.
And now they could figure out what we like the most, so they could
And I was
advertise
saying
to
that
us.
was the
Oh,
whole
yeah, and it's-
that was the whole point of this podcast, was just talking about how back in the day, the way this country was founded was to divide everybody, make them fight, keep people oppressed, and the same thing is happening today, just through a different media.
Do you think
Yeah.
it's a coincidence that it's almost the total antithetical point of the country? The country's called the United States of America, right? But it's
Yeah,
been
we're
done
completely
nothing but
divided.
try and divide people. And, it's supposed to be all
Right.
about freedom and democracy and justice and liberty. But it seems like that's the furthest thing away from what the government has in mind. And believe me,
Yeah.
I love America. I'm not trying to just sit here and shit on America for an hour.
Yeah, be a
and
bunch
half.
of
You know
anti-American
what I mean?
assholes.
I'm not
Yeah.
anti-American, whatever. I'm just thinking critically about the country.
We just understand
the
that it
story
could be
we
better.
told maybe is not true.
Right.
When you're
I
a
like
kid,
the
doesn't mean it's not a
ideals.
great
I like
place.
the ideals that have
Ideas,
come
right.
out of this country. Like, look, you work hard, okay, and you can make your way, and you'll be successful, and you'll live a comfortable life. Those are very good values to have. God-fearing, that can mean whatever the fuck you want it to mean. Born and raised Catholic, I am by no means, a proponent of the Catholic Church, but you should just live your life in a way that's beneficial to not only to you, but to your neighbor.
Yeah.
Okay. The values that have came out of this country, I think.
Oh, modern day
Common
values.
folk anyway, you're right. Modern day values, I think, are very good, but
The values they put down
overall-
on paper, if they actually followed them, I feel like is what you're trying to get at. Like liberty, justice, work hard,
Right.
you'll be rewarded.
Yeah.
Those ideas and those values
We-
are great, and that's what makes me love America. But America did
Right.
not necessarily follow those values. And by America, I don't mean
okay, those values
Tom, Dick, and
is what
Harry.
makes
I mean
the
the
vast
federal
majority
government,
of
the
Americans
states. The
great fucking
yeah.
people.
Exactly.
But the way this country is run, that's my fucking problem. It's designed to oppress me and you and Cap and anybody else that's in the fucking middle class or the lower class has it has it the worst. I mean, you think about the middle class has it bad. No, I mean these minorities living in the ghetto are. I mean, could you imagine?
Yeah,
dude?
they're in
Could you
perpetual.
imagine,
They're in a
you know,
perpetual
look
like
at fucking
shit
There's no
McDonald's.
imagine. There's plenty of people doing it.
Dude. But I'm saying, imagine me and you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, it'd be rough.
Struggling to make,
Yeah.
begging to make $15 an hour.
Yeah.
What the fuck can you do with $15 an hour?
Nothing.
Nothing. Are you kidding me?
What are we supposed to do with $1,200 for 10 weeks?
Yeah, what a fucking
Dude.
asinine proposal.
And they're fighting it. The
Yeah,
government is
they're fighting it. Yeah, isn't that crazy, dude?
Yeah.
$15. What the fuck can you buy for $15, bro?
Yep.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the corporations
Well, why?
they got shit.
Why
They
are
got
things
the biggest chunk of the money went to them.
Steak at the supermarket for $15 fucking dollars. A quality steak.
Listen, man.
And it goes right in line with inflation. You know what I mean? You know, how did things become so inflated? Why was it let to get, that crazy, that inflation so high?
Well,
You know what I mean?
It's a natural thing over time, but
Something I
Yeah,
said
but
all
so
the time.
then over time, eventually it's going to be what, $115? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's almost like a mathematical thing too.
I mean, I'm not no economist. I don't even want
Yeah,
to start
get into
speculating.
that.
But
What I was going to say is this country says it's a democracy, it says it's a republic or whatever, that's our motive of
It is not.
government. It's not. Capitalism is
marketed
our
as that.
the market, and capitalism is our real, method of government, and it's shrouded in democracy and being a republic and liberty,
Right,
justice, and all that.
exactly. Like
It's
I
really
said,
capitalism pulling the
hacking-
strings and the rich and all that stuff behind the scenes.
An oligarchy that's fucking marketed and
Marketing.
packaged as a fucking
Yep.
democracy.
They're very good at marketing. Let's put it that way. You know all
Oh,
about that,
this
Kev.
country
Have
is
been
the
from the
best in
start.
marketing. Are you kidding?
They've been marketing freedom since day
Mhm.
one.
Yeah.
See,
And
we're all in
it's
favor of the
evolved,
idea.
and it's evolved.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
We're all.
they slam it on you as a kid, bro. I
Mhm.
mean, I pledge
No,
allegiance to the flag
I'm
of the
bringing
United
something
States
different, though.
every single day, dude.
Right.
Remember that shit?
Yep.
Yeah,
Before
but
a
now
sports game.
people are against that. You
And
know?
yeah, yeah. I mean, if you think about that, sometimes it's kind of weird, right? Like, that's something you would, like, I don't know, like that's like Hitler makes all those people stand there in the
Right?
plaza,
Pledge of
right, and
Allegiance?
put
Right,
out
exactly.
their
That is
hands
something
and do
the
that.
fucking Third Reich would have
Right.
done.
It's similar in a way,
That's pure propaganda.
Yeah, kind
Pure
of, kind
propaganda.
of. Yes and no. Yes, it kind of is. Like, is it kind of harmless too?
How is
Yes,
it
it's
not?
not. It's
Explain to me how
no.
it's not.
It
You're indoctrinating
yeah.
fucking children, dude.
Right. No, you're right.
Impressionable children.
That's a good
who
point.
Don't know nothing.
Yeah, but you want
Yeah.
the kids. I mean, even for the idea we have of our own perfect America, you would want kids growing up with a sense of pride of their own
Let them
country.
fucking figure that out on their own. If they don't want to live here, they can fuck off.
Well, yeah, but
If
I
you
mean,
really-
everybody how many people are really going to do that? Everyone who said the second Trump wins, they're going to leave the country. Not maybe one person did that.
Dude, that's a fucking different story.
Yeah, but so okay, but
you're
you're saying
when they're
you s-
pushing this, I pledge. You're literally pledging.
Yeah. Your allegiance.
You're putting your hands over your heart and you're swearing your allegiance to a country which, when you're fucking 10 years old, you know nothing about because they're teaching you a fucking augmented reality in these fucking bullshit textbooks. It's completely different.
Under God.
Yeah,
We're supposed to be church and
I don't
state are
mind too
supposed to be
much
separate.
of
Why are we saying under
Pledge
God?
allegiance,
what
but I
if I'm
care
an
less.
atheist? Why am I saying under God? You know what I mean?
well, that's why people don't stand and
That's
shit
it.
like that anymore.
You're right, Zoo. You both make pretty good arguments. I think there's maybe something a little bit harmless to it, but I also feel like you're right. Like it's kind of like propagandizing children to like indoctrinate them.
Yeah.
Like it makes you feel
Yeah.
proud.
You're creating basically like little soldiers for your country. I mean, I don't mean soldiers in the military sense. I just mean people that are going to fucking try and propagate your bullshit further
Yeah.
to more people.
You're trying to indoctrinate people into your system, into your society,
Exactly.
into your way of
Exactly.
being.
Same thing as a Catholic church. If you don't get baptized, you fucking go to hell.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's similar in a way. Different, but same.
Yeah.
Interesting.
See, I don't care either way if they do the Pledge of Allegiance or not because I'm not in school anymore and I don't have kids.
Yeah.
So
However-
I don't care. Like,
However, Kat, when you go to a Giants game, what do they do before the game? When you go to a Yankee game, what do you do before they?
yeah, but
they
I
have the
enjoy
game?
standing up for the
You take
national
off-
anthem.
Yeah, I know. So do
Huh?
I. I'm not saying, you know what I mean. There was this whole thing, and then
Yeah, but
and
the
the,
national anthem at a game is different. It's to remind you what the fuck like is truly important. It's not like
Yeah.
okay, these two teams are different. Your two states are different. The national anthem is, in my opinion, anyways, to remind you that yes, okay, there is a competition going on, but the reality is you guys are still Americans.
yeah,
Yeah, but you can say the same thing about the Pledge of Allegiance. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
We're
that's
all
different.
we're
That's
all in
different. You
school.
are literally saying the words "I pledge
That's true.
allegiance."
that's true.
You know
Yeah,
what
it's
I'm
like
saying?
it's like
Yeah.
you're
You don't
it's like
even
you're
know what they
reciting
mean.
a it's
Right.
like you're reciting almost like a cult saying or something
Right,
in a
exactly.
way. Obviously,
Like
it's not
when
a
you
cult
were a
saying,
kid,
but
when when you were a kid,
didn't it make you?
every day in public school. I mean, I think we all went to public school at one point.
I went to
right?
Catholic school, but
Yeah,
When you still did the pledge of allegiance.
I did it since
didn't they?
every day in
Didn't
kindergarten.
I mean, didn't they even? When you first start going to school, and didn't they probably like give you a thing, and you had to like write it and memorize it? You know, like when you
Yeah,
were saying
dude,
kindergarten, like you probably had like a
those are
worksheet
my
and it's
first
like write it.
It was just
Those are
another
my first two
memorization
memories,
test.
is writing that shit down and standing up every day. And it was mindless. It was mindless. It was
Mhm.
just something that you just got up with the morning announcements. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, blah, 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 blah. Dude, there was a point, it was just,
Mhm.
you didn't even think about it. The
Yeah.
words meant nothing.
You know what's
But you know,
crazy
though,
too?
earlier,
Hold on,
hold on. Earlier, you said though, like, you know, I don't mind standing up for the national anthem and stuff, and you could say the same about Pledge of Allegiance and stuff. And you're saying, you know, let the kids figure that out on their own. But at the same time, though, Zoo, you're your own perfect example. Like, you were forced to say it every day, but you figured it out on your own by now anyway. So really, how much does it matter if, like,
yeah, but okay,
these kids are saying,
you're not at a football or a baseball game. You're not forced.
I'm not
that.
saying I'm talking about in school though. Like your point of view is let them figure it out on their own, and you were let to figure it out on your own, and you figured it out. You know what I'm saying? Like you figured it.
I'm a smart person.
Well, I'd rather more smart people in the world than dumb people. So, you know, I mean, you figured it out for yourself.
Obviously.
So,
But,
I mean,
based, unfortunately.
Yeah, but so that's what the point I'm trying to get across. Like people will eventually figure it out for themselves. Whether I don't think that's like the biggest brainwashing tool they have.
Yeah, you
That's
see,
the problem. A lot of people don't.
right? And you know what's crazy too? What I was gonna say before is like the fact that we even just had this conversation. I bet you like agents of the Matrix will come out of nowhere and be like, "What the fuck? These guys hate America. They don't want." You know what I mean? Like, there's people that are so pre-programmed and indoctrinated by these things that they won't even allow you to question them. And I'll use for example,
that's the identity politics.
Hold on. I'll use for example Colin Kaepernick, right? The fact that he kneeled for the national anthem, right? I kind of had no problem with the fact that he knelt for the national anthem because it's his right to protest or whatever. Like he's an American, you're supposed to be able to think critically and have counterpoints and the same conversation we're just having. I have no problem with anything either of you says, right? We're allowed to have that conversation. But then I'm also have no problem with somebody getting mad at him for kneeling at the for the thing. You know what I mean? Like I have no problem with him kneeling, but then I also have no problem with somebody getting mad at him for kneeling.
Didn't the NFL suspend him?
Right. Yeah. I don't even want to get into. I'm just saying it like theoretically. I don't even want to get into the details of if the NFL was right.
I know, but that literally plays into your point. Like he kneeled because it was his right to kneel, but then the NFL as a private entity suspended him for kneeling because it was their view that he was doing something wrong.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I guess you could say that they had a right to because he's like an employee of them. You know. My point when this whole thing
work without your suit on.
When this whole thing was going on, my point was you could like I had no problem with him kneeling, but all the stuff he was trying to get attention to talk about stuff. He's Colin Kaepernick. He still could have just spoken about that stuff. You know what I mean? Like he actually kind of harmed.
He didn't need to kneel and make a big spectacle of this.
Yeah, well, he harmed his cause now because now he's out of the public view because they erased him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He could have maybe still talked about this stuff. Whatever. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of Colin Kaepernick. All I'm saying I respect the viewpoint of both sides. Yeah, that's what America's supposed to be about.
What he was thinking at the time. Like, I'm sure there was a better way he could do it, but whatever.
That's what America should be about, though, when you think about it, right? Like, I should be able to question the foundation of America without being hung for it. And you should be able to be mad at me for questioning that, my thoughts. But you shouldn't be able to hang me for it.
This is my point. This is my whole point of the Pledge of Allegiance, dude.
Mm-hmm.
This is why people jump down your fucking throat, because when you're a fucking 5-year-old, you're indoctrinated to think that this country is the greatest thing that's ever happened in the history of the entire fucking universe.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
So people don't even consider anything else as being possible to be better.
They don't question anything. Yeah. Exactly.
They don't question anything.
Let's also be real though. Like there is great stuff here, right? Like there's no Gestapo. Like we're having this conversation right now. The Gestapo is not going to be knocking on my door when I hang up on you guys later and lock me up. You know what I mean?
Not yet.
I could say Trump is a fucking retard and I hate him. Trump's not going to show up here and put me in jail for such a thing. You know what I mean?
Man looks like shit.
Right. You know what I mean?
Orange fucking. He looks like this motherfucker Craig. in this fucking, you know what I mean?
So there's good and there's bad, you know. It's just, I don't know. It's an interesting place, America. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. I mean, there's so many things that are so much better than anywhere else on the planet.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking
Yeah,
about
we can't take that for
tens
granted.
of hundreds of times better.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's things that are just
Well, that's because we were given
Questionable.
just enough not to.
Questionable, and maybe
Give it
it's
a
in
night
our
just
nature as
for-
Americans to
Yeah,
just be question
exactly. We were given
everything.
just enough where a lot of other countries, you know, maybe that's an entire way of thinking about it. We were given just enough, whereas other places in the world were given absolutely
Given
fucking
less.
nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going like
Maybe
when I
that's the
went to
whole way of
Africa, man,
thinking
that should
about
put you in perspective. When I was in Africa, I saw like real poverty there, and it puts like
Yeah.
things in perspective. It's like, wow, even if you have it really bad in America, you have it great compared to the way some people have it elsewhere in the world.
And that's a whole nother fucking perspective.
Yeah,
But at the same time, it's like I think about that a lot. Okay, like there's a lot of things that I don't like about what happens in this country, but at the same time, like would I rather live here than pretty much anywhere else? Fuck
Yeah.
yeah. So I try to balance myself out, but at the same time, like don't market it as being like, okay, if you come here, you're gonna be an instant fucking success, because in people's history, and I'm not sure if you remember this part, Skaggs, but there was a section in the book, I think it was chapter 3, where it was saying that there was letters from people that lived in America, and we're back in pre-colonial times, where people were writing back to Europe, like, fucking stay in Europe.
yes,
Don't fucking come here. It's bullshit. You remember that?
it's terrible. Yeah, terrible conditions. Yeah, this isn't colonial times, right?
Horrible
Yeah,
conditions.
yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, you want to go back to Gangs of New York? Yes, it was a fictional movie, but the
Yeah.
fucking Irish are coming off the ships and people throwing rocks at them. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There it is, right
dude,
there.
yeah. Over on-
During that
Hey.
time, right? They were second class citizens. You know?
Mhm.
Yeah, and you don't read any of that in the history book.
Yeah, you don't.
They
You
came
just hear
over.
about the-
They came
You
over
hear about
from
the big melting
Belfast.
pot.
They came over from Belfast in fucking chains. They were sold. They were bought and sold like fucking slaves. The only difference is the color of their skin. Thankfully for them, eventually, after 7, 8, 10, whatever the fucking amount of years was that their servitude was done,
Yeah,
they were
allowed.
free.
They were built into the. You know what I mean? Like they were
They were
built
free. They
into the
couldn't
power
fucking vote
structure in a
because they
way.
didn't own any property,
Yeah.
but at least they weren't treated like black slaves.
hmm Yeah, I remember back in one of these classes I took in college. This was actually a really interesting class with a great professor. It was not your normal class, and we would have like open discussions and things like that. And he would always say how racism is used liberally, right? Like it changes, it morphs. Racism back in the day was against Africans, Irish, Chinese people, Italians, but it can be changed. You know what I mean? Like now, an Italian person is considered a white person. Back when Italian people first started coming here, they were considered second-class citizens. You know what I mean?
That's why there's no fucking Italian check mark when you go to fill out any of these fucking racial forms. It's Caucasian.
It's just white. Yeah. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I always
racist in
don't. I always hated those fucking check mark things. It's like, why do they want it? Why do they care? Well, and I'm like, what the fuck does that even mean? Like that's
It
like
ties back to the pre-colonial time. I mean, they classified, because most of the ruling class was white. They classified as anybody with a white skin color as being superior to anybody that had a darker complexion.
mhm.
So that's where these whole forms come in. They just classify anybody with white skin as Caucasian. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't like
Yeah.
those check
Oh,
boxes,
into
dude.
that.
I I feel like they shouldn't be
bullshit.
there. We're just human
And now,
beings.
even if you don't want to
Asians
identify, you
have
still have to check that off.
Asians have
I
white
don't
skin,
identify.
Right.
What happened?
Right, but on there it says Asian. You know, what is it? It's usually like
I know.
like the boxes are white.
Because
The boxes are white, black, Hispanic, Latino, Native American, Asian. Those are like the boxes. That's
Yeah.
just like over.
white
And
is-
I-
it's crazy.
Also, the
White
new
is
ones, I do not
white is
self-identify.
Spanish, white is Italian, white is fucking Portuguese. There's so many different.
What if you're half and half? What if you're half black and half white? The fuck do you check off?
What do?
You know what I mean? Like what a
Black, and
stupid fucking
It's
idea.
your advantage in that to do black nowadays.
It's just a
check that
stupid
box.
fucking
If you try to
idea.
get
Things like that
school,
just further divide people. You know?
Get a loan or some shit.
Yeah. All right, man. We literally just did almost 2 hours. That was pretty good.
Yeah, we did like
Coming up on 2
that.
hours.
That was a good one, man.
Yeah, I've definitely been wanting to do this podcast for a long time. I feel like we could keep going for another 10 hours about
I
this
feel
book.
like
It's just straight
there's
complaining
a whole
now.
bunch of stuff that comes out of this.
Yep.
These thoughts that we had.
Yep.
It's craziness.
It's a great book, dude. I'm literally only halfway through. I've been reading it for like 2 years. It's not an easy read because it is very historical.
It's not. Yeah, it's very heavy.
Yeah, let me plug it one more time for Howard Zinn before I let the captain wrap it up. It's A People's History of the United States. It's written by Howard Zinn. It's a great book. You take your time reading it. That's what I've been doing. It's not something you just read in one shot. And you can buy it basically anywhere. I bought it off Amazon. So there you go.
I got it
Bezos
on
gave you a plug too.
hardcover with like
Gave Bezos more money.
Yeah. Go ahead, Cap. Wrap it up.
All right, so shout out Zinn. He didn't pay for this plug at all. We're plugging him for free out here. So that was our episode. Give us a like and a listen. We're on Apple Podcasts, Apple iTunes, and Spotify under Two Doomed Men. We have a new Instagram name, Two Doomed Men _podcast. So give us a follow, give us a like, comment us. We'll talk to you. We have no problem with that. Also follow us on our YouTube page, which this episode will be on. The YouTube page is Two Doomed Men podcast, correct?
Yeah.
Us
Two Doomed
guys?
Men.
Yep. And we're also on Facebook as, once again, Two Doomed Men. And our hashtag is TD2DM. Hashtag 2DM for Two Doomed Men. So please follow us, comment. We'd love to hear from you. Even give us suggestions for what you want to hear next time. Zoo, thank you for coming on. Thank you for talking. Thank you for reading the book. Sitting here having a few drinks with us.
Yeah, thank you, bro.
Yeah, man. Look,
Appreciate
it was a pleasure. I've been wanting to be on with you guys for a long time, and look, I hope we can put something else in the books very soon.
Hey, man, you've been
we
looking
can.
forward to it for a while. I'm going to be honest, this is probably like our best podcast so far, like our deepest podcast, where we question shit the most and whatnot. So thanks again,
Love
bro.
it.
There you go.
All right.
Cheers, everyone.
Later.
Soon.
Cheers.
All right, boys.
Cheers.